On the evening of November 21st, 2021, the city of Waukesha, Wisconsin, was wrapped in the warmth and joy of the holiday season. Families lined the streets in folding chairs, children sat on their parents' shoulders, and community groups marched proudly through downtown during the annual Waukesha Christmas Parade. It was a night meant for celebration, a moment when neighbors came together to share music, laughter, and tradition. But in a matter of seconds, that joy turned into panic, confusion, and unimaginable horror. Without warning, a red Ford Escape SUV broke through the parade barricades and sped directly into the crowd. Witnesses described hearing screams replace the sound of music as people scattered in every direction. The vehicle did not slow down. Instead, it weaved through performers, volunteers, and families, striking anyone in its path. What should have been a peaceful holiday event instantly became a mass-casualty crime scene. By the time the SUV exited the parade route, 6 people were dead, more than 60 others were injured, and an entire community was left traumatized. The driver was identified as Darrell Brooks, Jr., a man whose violent actions would soon dominate headlines nationwide and whose courtroom behavior would later shock millions.
And 2 citizens with me on Hartwell and White Rock saying that there's a fight in progress. And one of the squads go meet with where the subjects are that are claiming that this fight happened. I escaped, black male, I couldn't stop it. He's going westbound, blowing his horn. We have multiple casualties. Many gas cars. We need multiple 1052s.
The code for ambulances.
Earlier that same day, Darrell Brooks had been involved in a domestic dispute with his ex-girlfriend. According to police reports and trial testimony, the argument was intense and physical, and Brooks was already in a state of agitation and anger. When officers attempted to intervene, Brooks fled the scene in his vehicle. Prosecutors later argued that Brooks was not confused, panicked, or unaware of his surroundings when he entered the parade route. Instead, they maintained that he made a deliberate choice. Surveillance footage, eyewitness testimony, and video evidence showed Brooks driving around barricades, accelerating into crowds, and steering toward groups of people rather than away from them. This was not a single mistake. It was a series of conscious decisions made in seconds. Decisions that would end lives forever.
Was the band music, and then I heard the vehicle, almost the engine revving, speeding up, speeding along the route, and then just heard a loud bang and screams and cries, people in pain, fear, and agony.
Witnesses described scenes that resembled a war zone. People were thrown into the air. Children were separated from parents. Parade performers collapsed on the pavement as bystanders rushed to help the injured. Some victims were run over more than once as the SUV continued forward. Among those killed were members of the beloved Dancing Grannies, a group of elderly women who had participated in the parade for years, bringing joy to the community. Also killed was a young child whose life had barely begun. Dozens of others were left with catastrophic injuries, shattered bones, spinal damage, traumatic brain injuries, and emotional trauma that would last a lifetime. Emergency responders worked frantically, turning storefronts into triage centers and transporting victims to hospitals across the region. For Waukesha, the attack shattered any sense of safety in public spaces. Darrell Brooks was arrested shortly after the attack when police located him in a nearby neighborhood. Bodycam footage from the arrest shows Brooks sweating, rambling, and giving inconsistent explanations about what had happened. He attempted to distance himself from the vehicle and claimed he was not the driver, despite visible injuries consistent with the crash. Officers quickly connected Brooks to the red SUV, which was found damaged and abandoned. Evidence recovered from the vehicle, including DNA, debris, and video footage, placed Brooks unmistakably behind the wheel during the attack. From the moment of his arrest, investigators believed they had their suspect.
Short 3 stood.
I just used somebody's phone to call for a lift, that's all.
Oh, okay.
That's what I need, yeah. 1 to 26, the blackmail for t-shirt.
I'll tell you what. If everything turns out to be on the up and up, life will be good, and you'll be on your way, all right?
Yes. I got it, guys, I got it. Suspect, I presume?
Unknown. Ask him.
We have no information that Brooks knew anybody in the parade, but I will say this. We weren't able even to respond to that domestic call before it actually, so we couldn't even investigate it.
Brooks' criminal history begins in 1999 at age 17 when he pleaded guilty to inflicting bodily harm. He has pleaded guilty, been convicted, and done time for drug violations in gun cases, domestic violence, and endangering safety, including obstructing police.
As the investigation continued, Darrell Brooks's criminal history became a central focus. Court records revealed a lengthy pattern of domestic violence, reckless behavior, and prior arrests spanning years. At the time of the parade attack, Brooks was already out on bail for another violent offense. This revelation sparked widespread outrage and national debate. Many questioned how someone with such a record had been released back into the community. Critics argued the system had failed. Not just the victims, but the entire city. Prosecutors later used Brooks's history to demonstrate a pattern of aggression and disregard for human life, arguing that the parade attack was the tragic culmination of years of unchecked violence. When the case went to trial in 2022, it quickly became one of the most watched courtroom proceedings in the country. Darrell Brooks made the extraordinary decision to represent himself, rejecting legal counsel. What followed was weeks of chaos, disruption, and shocking behavior that played out live on courtroom cameras. Brooks repeatedly interrupted testimony, argued with the judge, accused witnesses of lying, and attempted to derail the proceedings with nonsensical legal claims. He refused to acknowledge basic legal concepts, questioned the court's authority, and was frequently removed from the courtroom due to outbursts. Judge Jennifer Doro maintained firm control under extraordinary circumstances, ensuring the trial continued despite Brooks's behavior. For many viewers, the courtroom footage was difficult to watch, not because of doubt in the evidence, but because of Brooks' apparent lack of remorse. Despite the courtroom theatrics, the evidence against Brooks was overwhelming. Prosecutors presented multiple videos, including parade footage, surveillance video, and police body cam recordings. Dozens of eyewitnesses testified, recounting exactly what they saw and experienced. Medical experts detailed the injuries suffered by victims. Law enforcement officers traced Brooks' movements second by second. There was no mystery about what happened, only grief. The defense offered no credible alternative explanation. In October 2022, after weeks of testimony, the jury returned its verdict. Darrell Brooks was found guilty on all counts, including 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and dozens of additional charges related to the injured victims. He was later sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never again be free. During sentencing, victims and families delivered devastating impact statements describing the pain, anger, and permanent loss caused by Brooks's actions. Brooks's own statements showed little accountability, further deepening the pain felt in the courtroom. The Waukesha Christmas Parade attack was not an accident. It was not a tragedy without warning. It was a deliberate act of violence committed in a place meant for joy, unity, and celebration. The case raised critical questions about public safety, bail decisions, and how warning signs are handled before it's too late. But more than anything, it is a story about innocent lives, lives taken, altered, and forever remembered. A parade meant to celebrate the season became one of the darkest days in Waukesha's history. 6 lives were stolen, families were shattered, and a community learned how fragile normal life can be. This story is not about giving attention to the man who caused the harm. It is about remembering the victims. It is about learning from failure. And it is about ensuring accountability when violence leaves no room for excuses. If you want more in-depth true crime documentaries, real courtroom footage breakdowns, and Bodycam-based investigations, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. Because these stories are not just content. They are warnings written in real lives.